She said she needed space to think about the wedding, so I gave her space. And a folder. Inside? Dozens of photos. All time-stamped. All from Miami. All showing her wrapped around her ex like he was the groom. She told me it was just her and her mom on that trip. Funny. I didn't know her mom had tattoos and a six-pack. My name's Daniel. And this is the story of how I almost married a woman who used our engagement as a layover to her past. Vanessa and I weren't high school sweethearts or fade-on-a-subway types. We met at work. Neutral ground. Quarterly budget meeting, actually. She laughed at my joke about color-coded spreadsheets, and I made a note to learn 10 more bad ones. She was smart, that cool, disarming kind of smart that makes you want to listen more than you talk. And I was the stable one. The guy who brings jumper cables to first dates and sets calendar reminders to check the smoke alarms. We worked. We just worked. She'd tease me for packing salads, and I'd tease her for owning 12 pairs of boots she never wore. 2 years in, we moved in together. 3 years in, I proposed. Simple, thoughtful, her favorite trail with her favorite song playing through a Bluetooth speaker buried under leaves. She said yes through tears. That yes carried us into a year of planning, colors, guest lists, floral arguments, seating chart debates. It was chaos, but the good kind. The kind where love felt like the compass, not just the destination. And then, about 5 weeks before the wedding, she said she needed space. Not in a door-slamming, fight-screaming kind of way. No, she said it while sitting on the couch, holding a mug of tea with both hands, staring at the steam like it held answers. She said she felt overwhelmed, that she loved me, but wanted to be sure she wasn't just riding momentum. That her mom had offered to take her to Miami for a long weekend, just the two of them. Some sun, some rest, some clarity. I told her to go. And for the first day, I believed that's what it was. She sent one photo, a selfie in front of a hotel mirror. Glass of wine, robe, hair up. Caption, spa life with mama. Except something about that mirror caught my eye. It wasn't the mirror itself, it was what was behind it. A painting, one I'd seen before. I'd stayed at that hotel for a conference 3 years ago. I remembered the art, because I'd spilled coffee on my shirt trying to admire it. I remembered it was in the couple's suite. I tried not to spiral. I did. I asked if she was having fun. She replied 2 hours later. Yeah, just relaxing. Mom's already asleep. That was Friday night. Saturday, nothing. No texts. No updates. No, I love you, or wish you were here. Sunday, still nothing. Monday morning, I got a message. Not from her. From Brent. We'd only met once, a friend of a friend I barely remembered. But apparently, he followed me on Instagram after that party last year. Saw the engagement photos. Recognized her. He was in Miami for his buddy's bachelor party. His message said, "Hey, man, this might be nothing, but I saw someone who looked a lot like Vanessa last night. I recognized her from your engagement post a while back. She wasn't with her mom. Looked kinda close with the guy she was with. Could be a look-alike, but figured I'd check." He attached a photo. Vanessa, hair down, laughing, leaning into a man in a white linen shirt with one hand on her waist and the other holding a mojito. It wasn't blurry. It wasn't ambiguous. I stared at it for a long time, waiting for my brain to come up with a version of reality where this made sense. None came. And then more photos started trickling in. One from Brent, then one from his friend, then one from a girl who followed me on Instagram and happened to be in Miami with her sister, a complete stranger, until she recognized Vanessa from a tagged engagement shoot I posted. "I almost didn't send these," she wrote, "but I figured, if it were me, I'd want to know." Vanessa, laughing on a boat. Vanessa, dancing in a club. Vanessa, checking into a hotel that wasn't the one she said she'd be staying at. The man was in every single one. She didn't seem to care who saw them. No effort to stay out of frame. No hesitation in public. Like she convinced herself that as long as I didn't see it, it wasn't real. Or maybe she didn't plan to come back at all. I didn't cry. I didn't scream. I just saved them, printed them, labeled them by date and time, put them in a folder like I was filing taxes on a relationship. She came home Tuesday, tired, quiet, said she needed a few days to process everything, said she might spend a night or two at her mom's. I said okay, and then I handed her the folder. Her hands trembled before she even touched it. "What is this?" she asked, though I think she already knew. "You'll see." She didn't open it right away, just stared at the folder like it might burn her. Then, "Who sent you these?" "Enough people to tell me the truth when you wouldn't." She scoffed, shook her head, a flicker of defiance. "You're spying on me now?" "No," I said. "You just weren't very careful." Silence. Then finally, she reached for the folder, opened it, flipped through the pages, slower with each one. I starting, breath shallow, the rooftop, the boat, the hotel lobby, then the kiss. I put that one last, not for drama, for clarity. She stopped, closed the folder, and for the first time, her voice broke. I didn't mean for it to go that far. So I did. How long? She didn't answer. So I said it again, slower this time. How long, Vanessa? Just the weekend, she said, barely above a whisper. I wanted to believe her, that it was a fluke, a mistake, a heat-of-the-moment thing. But mistakes don't usually come with hotel reservations under fake names. So I asked, did your mom know? That's when her face changed. Like a veil dropped. She didn't say no. She didn't even hesitate. She thought I needed space, she said. Clarity. I laughed. Not because it was funny, because sometimes disbelief is the only thing keeping your lungs from collapsing. Clarity? That what you call this now? She didn't know it would turn into that, she said, gesturing weakly toward the folder. And what would you call that, exactly? I asked. A test run? A second opinion? She stood up, pacing now. I didn't plan it, Daniel. I didn't go there to cheat. But you did, I said. Calm, cold. You went to Miami to make sure you weren't making a mistake by marrying me. That's what this was. You wanted to feel something. Anything. And if it wasn't stronger than what we had, then hey, you could always come back, right? Pick up where we left off and pretend none of this happened. She didn't respond. And silence, as it turns out, is its own confession. I stood too. Not to argue. Just to put some distance between us. Because the woman in front of me wasn't Vanessa. Not the one I'd known. Not the one who'd cried when we picked our first couch or made pancakes on Sunday mornings in oversized sweatshirts. This version of her was someone else. Someone who made a choice. Not a mistake, a choice. To reach out to an old flame. To lie about it. To build a weekend around it. To let me keep planning our future while she went and re-auditioned for her past. You should have told me, I said. Before you got on that plane. Before you said yes to a ring you clearly weren't sure about. I was sure, she said quickly. I am sure. I got scared. Of what? She swallowed. Of forever. And there it was. The truth, ugly and honest and sharp enough to bleed. She didn't cheat because she stopped loving me. She cheated because she didn't trust herself to stay. And instead of facing that, she ran toward the most familiar version of who she used to be, someone reckless, someone wild, someone who didn't know what came next and didn't care. I'd spent years becoming her safe place. And in the end, she mistook safety for stagnation. I told her I needed time, not to decide if I'd forgive her. I already knew I wouldn't, but to process how someone I loved this deeply could become a stranger in a single weekend. She nodded. Tears finally came, but they weren't enough. You can cry over spilled wine, over a burned dinner, over a missed anniversary, but not over betrayal you engineered. I packed a bag that night, took my pillow, my toothbrush, left the rest. She sat on the couch. Same spot she told me she needed space. Funny how full circle moments never feel like progress. Right before I walked out the door, she asked, do you still love me? I stopped, thought about it, then said, yeah, I do. But I'm not going to keep loving someone who treats that like a backup plan. Then I walked out, didn't slam the door, didn't look back. I drove to my brother's place, crashed on his couch, told him everything. He didn't say, I told you so. He just cracked a beer, handed me one, and said, well, at least you found out before the cake got cut. We laughed. It was hollow, but it helped. And that night, as I stared at the ceiling fan spinning above me, I made a promise. I wouldn't let this turn me bitter, but I would let it teach me. Because love, real love, doesn't ask you to earn what it already promised. The first morning after I left felt like waking up in someone else's life. No coffee brewing. No quiet footsteps from the kitchen. No good morning text with too many exclamation points. Just silence. And me, sitting on my brother's couch, wearing the same jeans from the day before, wondering how long it takes for a man to stop feeling like a ghost in his own story. Matt, my brother, gave me space. He always had this quiet way of being there without making it a whole thing. He handed me coffee, didn't ask questions, just turned on the game and let it play in the background. But I knew I couldn't hide on that couch forever. There was a wedding to cancel, vendors to call, people to disappoint. And no matter how much I wanted to put it off, the longer I waited, the more it'd feel like running. So I pulled out my phone, opened our wedding spreadsheet, which now felt more like an obituary. I started making the calls. Venue first, then the caterer, then the DJ. Each one was a new wound. Each time I had to say, the wedding's been called off. I felt like I was peeling another layer of skin away. Most were kind. A few tried to ask why. I gave them all the same answer, just a change in plans. No drama, no details, just a quiet funeral for a future that never made it to the altar. Then came the guest list. We had a shared group chat. Friends, family, bridesmaids and groomsmen. Vanessa's cousin who insisted on being called V, and my aunt who only texted in all caps. I stared at the screen for a while before typing anything. Then I wrote, "Hi everyone. Just wanted to let you all know the wedding has been canceled. No further details, just wanted to give folks time to adjust any plans. Appreciate the support. Wishing you all the best." Simple, respectful, clean. Or so I thought. Because 20 minutes later, I got a message from Vanessa. Just one line. "Did you really have to post that without telling me first?" Then another. "This is humiliating. No apology. No accountability. Just a reminder that even now, she thought she still had a vote." I didn't respond, but the silence said everything. Later that night, Matt and I ordered pizza. He cracked open another beer and asked, "Do you think she ever planned to tell you?" I didn't answer right away. Then I said, "No, I think she planned to bury it. Deep. Like it never happened." And that might have been the worst part. The betrayal was bad, sure. But the cover-up? The choice to come home, kiss me goodnight, and keep planning a wedding like nothing happened? That was the real deal breaker. Because love without truth is just a performance. And I've been clapping for a show I didn't know was fake. 2 days later, I got a call from Vanessa's mom, Linda. She and I had never really clicked. Too different. She thought I was boring. I thought she was a little too invested in being the star of someone else's wedding. But she called, so I answered. She sounded tired. No makeup in her voice, just raw edges. "Daniel," she said, "I'm sorry. I didn't say anything. I didn't think it would go that far," she continued. "I thought she needed space to think. You helped her plan it, Linda. That trip. The lie. I didn't know he'd be there. She used your name to cover it up," I said. "And you let her." She was quiet for a while, then said something I didn't expect. I told her, if she had doubts, it was better to face them now than drag them into a marriage. I almost laughed. "And cheating was your version of facing them?" "No," she said, her voice cracking. "That was her mistake. But me? I should have told her to talk to you. I should have pushed her to be honest." "Yeah," I said. "You should have." She apologized again. I hung up before she could make it sound like wisdom. Because betrayal dressed up as maturity is still betrayal. I didn't hear from Vanessa for a while after that. A few mutual friends reached out, most just checking in, a couple saying they were shocked. One said something that stuck with me. He wrote, "If this is how it ended, I can't imagine how much of yourself you gave to keep it going." And he was right. I gave, and gave, and gave, until the woman I loved turned me into someone who forgot how to ask for anything back. And the thing about people who only take, they always act surprised when you finally say enough. A week went by, then another. No calls, no texts, just the quiet hum of a life trying to reset itself after a crash. Funny thing about heartbreak, it doesn't scream. It hums. Low and steady, like background noise you can't quite turn off. Some nights, I found myself reaching for my phone without meaning to. Muscle memory. A ghost version of me still trying to send her good night, out of habit. But there was nothing to send. Nothing left to say. Then, 10 days after I walked out, she showed up. At Matt's. Middle of the day. No warning. Just a knock on the door and her standing there like she still had keys to parts of my life she'd already forfeited. Matt looked through the peephole, then back at me. "It's her." I didn't move. "She's crying," he said. Still didn't move. He looked at me again. "You want me to send her away?" I took a breath, then nodded. He opened the door. Kept his voice calm, level. "Hey, Vanessa. Not a good time. I need to talk to him. Please." "He's not ready." "I know," she said, voice shaking. "But I can't sleep. I can't eat. He needs to know what really happened." I stepped around the corner then, not because I wanted to hear her out, because I wanted to hear the version she'd chosen. Her eyes locked onto mine, red-rimmed, messy, honest, or at least trying to look that way. "Daniel, please," she said. "I know I don't deserve to be here, but I need to explain. I didn't say anything." She took that as permission. It wasn't supposed to be like that. I messaged him just to talk. I don't know, see where my head was at. I didn't mean for it to turn into anything. Then why lie? I asked, why say it was a trip with your mom? Because I knew how it looked. I knew you'd hate it. I knew if I said I wanted to talk to my ex, you'd tell me it was a bad idea. "I would have told you the truth," I said. "That if you're messaging your ex 4 weeks before our wedding, Something's already broken. She looked down. I didn't sleep with him, she said. I blinked. Seriously? That's where you're drawing the moral line. It matters, she said quickly, voice cracking. Not to me, I replied, calm but cold. Because you already broke it. You shared a bed, lied about the trip. Let me keep planning a wedding while you ran a full dress rehearsal for something you weren't ready to commit to. She looked down, silent. This wasn't an accident, I continued. It was a choice. Every message, every step into that hotel, every photo you didn't stop. That folder isn't about sex, it's about betrayal. And you crossed that line way before the sheets ever got involved. She stepped closer. I still love you. I shook my head. No. You love the idea of me. The stability. The comfort. The fact that I never made you question if I'd show up. But real love doesn't need test drives. She went still then. And for the first time, she didn't argue, didn't justify. She just broke. Not loudly. Not in some movie scene kind of way. She just crumpled. I don't know who I am without you, she whispered. And that's when I understood it all. She didn't cheat out of hatred or boredom. She did it because she was scared. Scared that a life built with me would mean giving up parts of herself she hadn't finished mourning. But the irony? She didn't lose me in Miami. She lost me the second she decided her fear was more sacred than our trust. I nodded slowly. I hope you find yourself, Vanessa, I said. Truly. I hope you figure out who you are. But I can't be the collateral damage in that journey. She didn't try to hug me. Didn't beg. She just said, I'm sorry, and walked back to her car. And I stood there at the door, watching the last page of our story turn without ceremony. That night, I opened the wedding keepsake box we'd put together. All the little things. RSVP cards. Menu samples. The handwritten vows we never finished. I didn't burn it. Didn't throw it away. I just taped it shut, wrote the date on the top, and slid it into the back of my closet. Not out of spite, but because even the wrong story deserves an ending. It wasn't long. No dramatic declarations. No replays of what went wrong. Just a letter. Clean. Typed, but not polished. A few typos. A few half-finished thoughts. She said she'd started therapy. That she didn't know why she kept ruining the good things. That when life got still, she panicked. Like something had to be broken if it wasn't buzzing with urgency. She said Miami wasn't about him. That he just answered first. That he was the only person who didn't remind her of everything she was afraid to lose. Then she wrote, I know I don't deserve your forgiveness, but I hope you stop wondering if it was your fault. It wasn't. You were good. I just wasn't ready to be held like that. That line stuck with me, not because it hurt, but because it was the first thing she'd said that didn't try to save us. It just let go. And that, I think, is when I finally let go, too. After the dust settled, people started showing up again. Old friends. Coworkers. My cousin Amanda, who always hated Vanessa and now suddenly felt validated enough to bake me a lasagna. They meant well, but every conversation felt like I was giving a TED talk on resilience I hadn't actually earned. You're handling this with so much grace, one of them said. I wanted to laugh. Grace? No. Grace is what you feel when something breaks and you choose kindness anyway. What I had was exhaustion. And eventually, I realized I didn't need everyone to understand how I was doing. I just needed one person. Me. So I stopped explaining. Stopped updating people like they were part of a committee deciding whether I was allowed to move on yet. Instead, I did something I hadn't done in months. I started writing again. Not letters. Not messages. Just thoughts. Journal pages. Scribbles on receipts. One of them read, You can't build a future with someone who treats honesty like a contingency plan. Another said, Love isn't tested by who you hold on to, it's tested by who holds on when the storm hits. I wasn't writing to heal. I was writing to remember who I was before I started shrinking myself to fit someone else's fear. Around that time, I got lunch with Rachel, a friend I hadn't seen in almost a year. She knew everything. Had seen the chat thread. Knew about the folder, the photos, the whole implosion. But when we sat down, she didn't ask about Vanessa. She just looked at me, sipped her iced tea, and said, So, what are you going to do with all that free catering credit? I laughed for the first time in weeks. And not the brittle, polite kind. The real kind. And in that moment, I realized I didn't want the old version of my life back. I didn't want to rewind to the days before the folder, before the Miami lies, before the love that asked me to prove I was enough. Because the truth? I was enough. She just wasn't ready for someone who didn't make her question herself. The wedding day came and went. May 14th. I didn't spend it in bed. I didn't drink myself into silence. I didn't even turn off my phone. Instead, I went for a hike. The trail Vanessa and I used to walk. I brought the ring. Not to throw it off a cliff, not to bury it, but to let it go. At the peak, I took it out of the little velvet box and held it in my hand for a minute, felt the weight of it, the promise inside it, the version of me who bought it, believed in it, carried it through a dream that didn't survive the truth. Then I left it there, set it on a rock by the overlook, not as a curse, not as a memorial, just as an offering, to the love that could have been, to the man I used to be, to the silence that came after, and the peace that was finally starting to grow in its place. 3 months later, I got invited to a wedding. Not mine, obviously. It was for Jared, a guy I'd known since college. He and his fiancée had been together 6 years, 2 dogs, 1 near breakup, and a miracle reconciliation later. I almost didn't go. Thought it might hit too close to the bone. Watching 2 people stand at the altar, promising forever, while I was still sweeping up the glass from a future that never made it past the blueprint stage. But something in me said go. Maybe it was curiosity. Maybe it was pride. Maybe I just wanted to see if I could sit in a pew and not feel like a fraud. So I put on a suit, the same one I was supposed to wear on my own wedding day. Felt different this time. Like armor. Like closure with a tie clip. And you know what? It didn't hurt. Not like I thought it would. When the bride walked down the aisle, I didn't think about Vanessa. I didn't picture her in white or replay what she did. I just watched 2 people who found their way back to each other. And I felt something I hadn't felt in a long time. Hope. After the ceremony, I found a quiet spot behind the reception tent. The sun was setting golden hour, the kind of light that makes even the mistakes feel softer. I was sipping a drink when someone tapped my shoulder. I turned. It was Claire, a friend of Jared's fiancée. I'd met her once at a barbecue years ago. She smiled. You looked like you needed someone to tell you it's okay not to dance. I laughed. Is it that obvious? She shrugged. It's a wedding. Everyone's either dancing or dodging an ex. I smiled at that. Thankfully, I'm only guilty of one. She raised her glass. Aren't we all? She didn't ask for my number. Just smiled, like she already knew this wasn't the end of our story. That night, as I drove home, windows down, tie loosened, a quiet thought came over me. Vanessa's name hadn't crossed my mind once during the first dance. Not in resentment, not in longing. She was just gone, not erased, not demonized. Just part of a story that ended before the good part. And that's the thing people don't tell you about healing. It doesn't come in a single wave. It comes in the spaces between moments where you thought you'd still be bleeding and find that you're not. It comes in the form of new people asking old questions, and you realizing you don't need to give old answers anymore. It comes when you stop rehearsing what you would have said if you had one more chance. Because some people were never meant to stay for the whole story. They were just the chapter that teaches you what not to accept again. I don't wear the ring anymore. Not on a chain. Not in a drawer. I left it on that mountaintop, where it belonged. But I kept the vows I wrote. Not because they're for someone else. Because they're still mine. Because the promises I made about showing up, choosing love, building a life with intention, they weren't wasted. They just weren't meant for her. And one day, they'll be for someone who doesn't need a folder to remember the truth. Someone who doesn't flinch at forever. Someone who knows love isn't a test, it's a choice. Every day. And this time, I'll choose better. Because I'm finally choosing me, too.